One Piece Chapter 1181, A God and a Devil, is the showcase of the big confrontation between Imu and Loki, a fight that I've been expecting for the last few chapters, and the result is an epic showdown between two of the strongest characters in the series that truly left me speechless because of how great it actually is. Let's jump right in. The chapter begins with Loki remembering his late father, the former king of Elbaf, Harald. Memories from 14 years ago. Harald says to Loki that he's the worst king in Elbaf history, and that Loki must kill him and take the throne for himself. Loki says how his father was only 144 years old at that time, and giants usually live up to 300 years, so he died way too early for his age. And it is a little funny because Loki really didn't need to say the giants usually live up to 300 years because that's just something he already knows, and so does Imu, so that is just there so the readers remember that giants are not like the humans and that they live a lot longer. So I find that kinda like breaking the fourth wall, but anyway. Loki says that Imu tricked his dad, which means that he is responsible for Harald's death. But Imu delivers a cold line, saying, hey, the one who's most inconvenienced by his death is actually me. Real savage from Mu, I must say. And this really triggers Loki, so he grabs Ragnir, charges up his Conqueror's Haki, and gets ready to strike. He thinks back to Harald saying he doesn't care how he's remembered, and that all that matters is how Elbaf survives and lives on in the future without being under the control of these demons. Loki asks what Imu did to Harald back then and uses a named attack called Ragna Ijuchi. And out comes the demon-shaped black flame from behind Imu almost like a JoJo stand and blocks the attack before it can strike, releasing a shockwave of Haki felt by all inhabiting Elbaf. And Loki can't believe this. This guy tanked a named attack from Ragnir. And we see the black flames circling Imu on the ground and above his head. Imu looks so cool in this chapter, I must say. He was not fazed at all by Loki's first attack. And seeing these flames around Imu, Loki asks what exactly they are and what his power is. Imu explains that Omen, the demonic Haki, is simply Imu's military might, as he turns himself into a giant and his blade into a mace so he can impact Loki's hammer. It looks like this Omen, whatever it is, it allows Imu to change the shape of anything he wants. I mean, he turned himself big, which is like, wow. That makes sense because Loki's so much bigger than the average person, so it stands to reason that Oda would give Imu this power. But what's more is that Imu can turn his blade into any kind of weapon he chooses. It appears that he holds a staff, but his black flame can actually turn into any object. First it was a regular blade, then it was a mace, and after Imu jumps up from this clash, he turns it into a sword and impales Loki with a named attack, Nemesis. A sword that looks awfully similar to Yoru, which Mihawk yields. Now bear with me for a minute. But doesn't this panel of Imu striking down with the sword look awfully similar to what Mihawk did to Luffy in Marineford, where Mihawk stood on the sword as he struck it down, and Yoru is a black blade of course, and so is Imu's quote-unquote sword, which yeah, it's black because it's the color of the Omen, but still, Oda deliberately illustrated this Nemesis move to resemble Mihawk's attack. He absolutely intended for us to connect this dot to Dracul Mihawk. But why? There are some similarities between the two, with the double ringed eyes, and Mihawk's overall demeanor and his appearance has looked like Mu in some panels. Perhaps Mihawk is part of the Nerona family, which was a large family in Merijua, and Mihawk at some point defected from their rule many years ago, which would explain the similarities, I guess. However, some people are actually going as far to say that Mihawk is straight up related to Imu, saying that he is his son, which would be crazy, but I don't know if I would go that far. But nepo-peace is definitely a real thing in One Piece, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit to find out that they're related, as it seems like every important and major character is related to some other top tier in the story. In any case, Imu starts talking about his power, how strength is what all crave, and this desire can be manipulated and cause them to be corrupted, as we see panels of Dory and Bragi being Domi reversed. Loki gets back up while Imu continues his soliloquy, saying how he only needs the people to submit their will to his covenant, like how Harald did, and then they will get Mu's power. Strength, covenant, and the Omen, those three things come together to create Dominion, and you see Loki just get blasted by Omen. Imu then asks him if he wants the power of a god, and that in one step he would be greater than any single human, but Loki, to his credit, stops himself from falling down, and hammers Imu down with Ragnir, saying he doesn't want Mu's power. Imu dodges of course, and Loki says how Imu's power is not a god's dominion, but more a deal with the devil, to which Imu says there is no difference between a god or a devil. As the title of the chapter suggests, a god and a devil clash. With differing ideals and perspective, Loki reaffirms that he's not interested in Imu's demonic aura, because he would never let himself be dominated by someone, which is the essence of a conqueror in One Piece. Imu then retorts saying the world itself rejoices in a state of dominion. And this line holds significance to Imu because with this, he thinks back to the voice century and someone who we presume is Joy Boy laughing and possibly Lily Nefertari in the background. He's triggered by the thought of Joy Boy and yells out, "Isn't that right, Joy Boy?" So this is very interesting because prior to this chapter, most people thought that Imu and Joy Boy were bitter enemies, but this single panel turns that thought on his head. Now I'm starting to think that Joy Boy and Imu were actually good friends, and Lily too, but something happened between the three where things turned sour and ended up on opposing sides of the Great War. And that something likely involved Nefertari Lily. Perhaps she was the love interest of Imu, but she instead took a liking to Joy Boy, which Mu resented. I know it's crazy to think that the voice century started because of a love triangle, but you can't deny its plausibility. I mean, look at how God Valley started, with Shaki's abduction. Like, obviously there was more to it, but that is what brought all the important players to the scene of the crime. Imu hates the way Lily left the world government, but she was part of the 20 Kingdoms during the war, at least I thought. Maybe Lily defected during the war to side with Joy Boy and the Ancient Kingdom. I don't know. What is almost certain now is that Imu and Joy Boy were a lot closer than we had originally thought. But with this scream from Imu, an immense Haki presence radiates across the island. And we quickly switch over to Luffy. He feels his demonic aura, so he tries to eat as much as he can, as fast as he can, so he can go and help Loki. He says he's never felt anything like this before, which is what Skapagaban said in the last chapter about Imu's Haki, which is further highlighting the weird nature of Imu's Haki. And in the final page, we see Loki land his first attack on Imu. He thinks Imu is disrespecting him by being deep in his thoughts, so he demands Imu to not underestimate him as he sends Mu flying into the Atom Tree. Imu is seen bleeding for the first time, and with not a moment to spare, Loki transforms into his own devil fruit form, Nidhogger, and fires a beam of lightning at Imu. Imu uses Omen to escape, and the final panel shows him smiling, glad that Nidhogg is actually back. Wow, what an incredible sequence of events. The paneling in this chapter is so good, every panel smoothly goes into the next, and the fact that we got a full chapter of just hands being thrown is incredible. What is funny though is how Imu acts like this is the first time seeing Nidhogg in Elbaf, but when he was in Gunko's body, he witnessed Nidhogg up close, so I don't know why he's acting surprised to see him here. Anyway guys, that was the chapter. This was hands down my favorite chapter in Elbaf so far. From start to finish, it was fantastic. But what do y'all think about the chapter? Did you like it? Did you not? Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. It's free, I promise. And I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.